You know, one of the things that I realized tonight for the first time sitting here listening to these, all these talks about these guys, one of the great things that being with the midgets did for me is the fact that we traveled all over the place. I've seen all these guys run. I mean, I'm sure that some of you guys from Connecticut never saw some of the guys from Maine that got it, or the guys from Vermont, or vice versa. We ran all these tracks, and we got to see these guys that now get honored, guys who made the decision for whatever reasons, families, businesses, and all that, to just stay home and enjoy their auto racing and not travel all over the world. Although, Lord knows, we certainly honor those guys, too. It's been a great time here in New England. And every time a bunch of us old-time midget fogies get together, the conversation always turns to what we think is a lack of characters in today's racing. I know some of you are going to say there are still a few, but trust me. In our day, many of the cars themselves were unique machines with charisma and history, and we could trace the histories of the cars through who had owned them and the drivers who had been in them and the wrecks they'd been in and who'd rebuilt the car and what pieces of it were still there from the old days and what's new. The drivers themselves had lots of characters. And Nick, I mean, just in the midgets, nobody would confuse a guy like Al Pillion with Billy Eldridge or Ray Roberts or Ray Burke. Each one had a very unique personality, usually very outsized personality. But neither the cars nor the drivers could really compete with the owners. The owners of the guys, I mean, think about this in all classes. They burn the midnight oil. They bust their knuckles to squeeze out a few pounds or find a few more horsepower. And what they're really doing is building a toy for the drivers to go out and play with. And as a result, maybe you gotta be a little different to be a race car owner. We've honored a few of them, and that's generally the way they're described. One of the ones that was one of the most outsized characters in the history of the Northeastern Midget Association was the guy we're here to honor tonight, Iron Mike Scrivani. He started in beautiful downtown Oakland Beach, growing up with Hop Harrington. And they were boyhood buddies. At one point, they had TQ races together. Hop claimed that the only time Mike ever beat him was when he cut through the infield to do it, which sounds typical. And we all remember during the period that Mike ran the famous truck stop. But when he started in racing, he was a truck driver. A guy could run really competitive Class A race cars on a truck driver's salary in those days. A lot harder to do now. The number 21 that he made famous on his race cars was originally the number on his truck. He first got into big car racing, bought a Hal D.O. Sprinter, ran that for a while with Jimmy Green before, like so many other people with sprint cars not doing so well, decided that midgets would be a lot more interesting because they had a lot more races. He bought a V860 midget. He wanted to work on it in the carport next to the house, but there wasn't room. And his wife said no, he wasn't going to change anything. So he waited till she went out for groceries, took a chainsaw, and hacked the back of the carport out so he had room for the midget. He was a charter member of NEMA, running its very first race at Seekonk on Memorial Day weekend in 1953. Jerry Russo drove that first car to a number of wins. Next, Mike bought the famous McLeod number 20 that had been driven by Johnny Thompson. He bought it from Oscar Ridland, another famous name in midget racing. Bill Eldridge, Ray Burke, Al Pillion, Tony Bonadias, Al Herman, Joe Chickey, Dave Humphrey all drove that car all over New England, New York, and New Jersey. He not only ran NEMA, he ran ARDC. When you look at today's tow rigs, it's hard to believe that a successful owner towed all those miles with a car on an open trailer behind an Volkswagen. During the 60s, when midget racing slowed down a little, Mike bought the famous M2 modified from Bernie Barrows. Proving it could be successful in more than one class of cars, Mike installed Leo Cleary behind the wheel and won both the Norwood and Thompson championships. Later, old pal Hop Harrington drove it to some more wins. Then Mike got back into midget racing because he always really loved the midgets. Butch Walsh and Dave Humphrey chauffeured this round. Walsh won the NEMA title in the car in '73, and Noki Fenoro, who's here today, won it in '81. But Mike didn't win the owner's title because he wasn't a member of the club. In keeping with his reputation of being a real character, he didn't agree with some of the policies, so he was damned if he'd pay the dues for the club, so he didn't get the car owner's points. The family title appears on the NEMA ranks because Mike Jr. finally won the title with Dave Humphrey in 1978. Mike helped a lot of people. Fred DeSaro was one of his proteges. When Ray Burke came back after being badly hurt at Danbury, Mike kept him in the ride until he won an A main, just so Ray could prove to himself he could still do it. At which point, by the way, Ray retired. One of my friends tells the story of accompanying a NEMA car owner to Mike's to get a part that Mike had offered to give him that he really needed. Mike says, sure, it's over at the house. So they follow Mike over to the house. And he starts going through closets. He's going through the coat closets. He's going through the bureau drawers. He's looking in the kitchen cabinets. They're all full of parts. The whole house was full of midget parts. He finally found it under the kitchen sink. They took the parts and went away. And then at one point in the 70s, Mike owned an upright that was wrenched by Mike Jr. and a Badger wrenched by Hop Harrington. One of the great nights in probably NEMA history and certainly in the Scrivani family history, saw Johnny Coy in the upright pass Jeff Bodine, of all people, in the Badger on the last lap for the win at Thompson. We lost Iron Mike almost 25 years ago on February 28, 1983. But we have all these memories and many, many more. He is a most deserving inductee into the New England Auto Racing Hall of Fame. Accepting for him is his son, the current NEMA president, Mike Scrivani, Jr.
Thanks, Dick. I'd like to thank Pete Sonati for nominating my father and all the people that voted and all the people here for NEA. I mean, just a big family and a lot of memories. I'll tell you, this is an honor, I'll tell you. It's tough, but if anybody knew my father, he was hard on the outside, soft on the inside. I can't repeat what he would say, but I'd be in trouble. Probably get escorted out of here. But he had some good memories back, the modifieds in Norwood. He enjoyed it. Leo was the first driver I drove for him. He really enjoyed it. He had some good times with him. Regardless, Leo come in the pits all teed off and spit all over the old man, and he's saying, boy, he's mad. Dashboard all kicked in, but Leo went out and did the job, And we realized what Leo did, it was right. And we blew the motor up. The old man said, you know what, you're trying. We don't care, we'll get you another one next week. And it goes back to some old stories, with the old modified guys, I like to know how Eddie Flimpy Sr. got the old man's hat off all the time. He'd be yelling at him, calling him a little SOB, and chasing around the parking lot. Then, the Bugsy that always tormented the old man. He was just, they had a good relationship at Norwood. It was like a big family. Then, Gene Burgeon, he drove my father's car at Thompson for a feature win that was unbelievable. And the following week, Gene just told me this story, and I forgot all about it, but it was a good one. The old man drives up to Wall Stadium. Gene meets him there. The old man drives in with a limousine with wine and crackers and cheese. Gene says, oh my God, I'm in trouble now. I can't let him put a scratch in this car, or else I'm going to be killed. I won't make it past the gate. But that's all the memories that, he shined. He always wanted to be the best he could be, wherever he wanted to race in. I got locked in the garage a couple of times, literally locked in the garage when I didn't do the job right. And he was perfection. He just wanted to be right. And he taught a lot of people, and if you think you was going to pull something over on him, forget about it. I might have told him a couple things wrong, and he said, you know what, you're wrong. I know you're lying to me. And he was right. He knew what was going on. You couldn't hide nothing from him. He was just a perfection, that's all. And The last year, when Nuki Fenora won the championship in AIDC on dirt, he completed one thing. The championship, and then the following year he passed away. And he wanted to do something and he set out to do it. And I lost my family and friends and everybody that worked with him and worked around him. We lost a great person. I lost my best friend. So I like to say, thanks for everybody for putting him in the Hall of Fame. It's a great honor. Thank you.
Well done, yeah.